Just saw everything that the prosecution is working with. The defense didn't put on a case in court, but this is what they've sort of worked on in their cross-examinations. Number one, there's the alibi. We heard about that. We talked about that a little earlier, the fact that he says he was out visiting a friend or went to visit a friend. The friend wasn't home between 7 and 8:30, arrived home at 8:30. There was other DNA found on objects near the scene. Now, again, that's that little boogeyman theory. I think there was a bottle and a cigarette butt that had DNA of someone that didn't belong to him. And he also got out testimony that it's an area, though remote, people do hang out there. Number three, there were tire tracks, but the connection was made by junk science. And we saw a really good cross-examination there, so that's something they can work with. The fact that he came home and showered and did laundry, which can be suggestive of something, but we found out that that was actually normal for him. But there was that weird smell of bleach. Then the gun residue, right? There's no way to date it. There's no way to determine the source. There's thousands of particles every time a gun is shot. He's around guns a lot, does practice with guns, so don't know how probative that is. And also that he paid $4,000 in the days leading up to the wedding. The fact that, he was still on board. He was still moving forward with the wedding, was still excited about it, even though there was some evidence that maybe he was having second thoughts, which, maybe is not unusual considering the fact that he was married already. So I want to know, what would you emphasize, or how would your closing look as a defense attorney?
Well, I think you'd have to stay away a bit from the alibi, because the alibi seemed to be, no pun intended, completely shot when the daughter says he doesn't come home until 10:30 at night, and the friend who he said that he was going to visit said he never saw him that night. They really made no plan. So you do have this time period of an hour and a half, 2 hours where he is missing and unaccounted for. So I wouldn't focus on the alibi, but I would focus on the fact that she is in a rural area where other people are. And you just do not know if she was alone in the dark, that someone could come upon her and shoot her. And then all of the other evidence that the prosecution has another reasonable explanation. Gun residue in the car. Well, he's a hunter. There could be gun residue from months ago. We just don't know. The T-shirt that's found there, oftentimes people are together. They may not, a man may not wear women's clothes, but one thing that couples do share in common at times are T-shirts. So the fact that she might have had one of the T-shirts that he had, they've had this relationship for 7 years, again, not something that proves somebody's guilt. And again, these things that the prosecution is trying to use to prove guilt are just the ordinary actions of a man returning home after a long day, puts his clothes in the wash, takes a shower, does it all the time. Doesn't prove that he was involved in a murder that evening. So I think that as a defense, you want to show that every piece of evidence that the prosecution has can point in two different directions, innocence or guilt. And if you could point it in two different directions, then there's reasonable doubt.